A crazy stretch of winter weather upon us as we're seeing rounds of snow, ice, and even severe weather crossing the lower 48 through the next week. And folks, I tell you, a lot of people are going to start to feel this. And by the time we get to next week, we could see an even stronger storm system potentially diving even further south. And that could bring once more another week of very active weather. So we're really seeing it all right there. Now, if you're new to the channel, welcome in. My name's Gerald. I'm a meteorology major at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. And if you haven't already, go ahead, like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell for the latest notifications. That's a great way to stay up to date as we continue tracking this extremely active pattern. And it really started last week, but we're really going to start to hit that next gear, I think, starting tomorrow with big snow, then another big storm by Wednesday and Thursday, and then another storm by the weekend. That one could produce big snow, ice, and a tornado threat through portions of the deep south. And like I said, this all could just be the beginning of what next week looks like as we try to round out February. Now go ahead and comment, let me know what you're seeing out there. Let me know where you're watching from. That always helps prepare these videos and always helps the video reach more people. And with that said, let's go ahead and dive on into the latest data, because we're seeing some interesting kind of trends in some of the models today that I think you'll find very useful here. Now, what you see next to me, this is the brand new European model for the next 10 days. Hot off the press, just came out basically right before I'm recording this. And you can see that snow and ice and severe weather train starting out west, moving through the east over the next 10 days. And again, folks, this isn't going to be one storm. It's not going to be two storms. Heck, it'll probably be even more than 3 storms in this time frame. And that's what we'll need to watch for that potential to bring big time impacts to you, your family, and potentially even your property. So that's what we need to kind of give you the details on today and get you prepared for. Now, before we start moving super deep into the future, let's take a look at what's happening out there right now. And normally I'm recording these videos pretty early in the morning, but since we're doing this a little bit later on this afternoon, we've got the opportunity to use our visible satellite. So let's use it here kind of for some good here. Now, one thing to notice here is I think the overall increase in cloud cover over the deep south through Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas. That's the start of our storm system that is going to begin to crank up this evening and into tomorrow. And this could bring big snow potential and even big ice potential through portions of the mid-Atlantic tomorrow. And then behind it, another big storm that is going to get even more folks in on the fun. So you can already kind of see the active weather beginning to increase on satellite, beginning to show itself. And I can only imagine some of the other scenes we'll see throughout the end of February. We could see some pretty impressive mid-latitude cyclones here on the satellite before all is said and done. Now let's take a look at radar. Also, again, kind of in a little bit of a lull, but becoming more active. You can see some of that snow beginning to fall over the Dakotas, Nebraska, down through the Central Plains, and then some rain through Texas, Arkansas, Mississippi. Like I said, this is kind of the calm before the storm, if you will. Everything's just now starting to ramp up. It's really overnight tonight and into tomorrow that we'll see a much more kind of blossomed radar picture here through much of the eastern half of the country, which leads us perfectly into our current alerts. You can see those new kind of watches, warnings, and advisories being issued. In fact, winter storm warnings now in effect in these pink areas through Virginia, West Virginia, even down clipping the extreme northern mountains of North Carolina here, and winter storm watches in effect for much of Maryland, Delaware, southern New Jersey, back into portions of northern Kentucky, and a new area of winter storm watches from Kansas City all the way to Topeka, north of St. Louis, and really through much of the Central Plains. This for a different storm. So this is storm number 1 in the east that's going to bring these impacts. Storm number 2 on the way by Wednesday. That's why we have these new blue boxes out for the Central Plains. Again, that wave pattern, we're going to see all sorts of crazy things here on the map as we go through the rest of this week. Now let's go ahead and break down the latest kind of computer models for our East Coast storm. And you can see this is 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Obviously looks like an active scene. But let's go ahead and back it up a little bit. Let's bring it back to where we are now and into this evening. Again, right now, things relatively quiet, but as we go into the overnight, you can see radar beginning to blossom. We've got some ice beginning into the Ozarks of southern Missouri, into the Kansas-Oklahoma border, seeing a little bit of a wintry mix this evening. And then some light snow up into the northern plains through portions of Wisconsin, Michigan, back into Nebraska. We'll go through the overnight. All of this rain, snow, and ice moving eastbound. And here we go, waking up tomorrow morning, a shield of snow beginning from Cincinnati back to Louisville into West Virginia, the western portions of Virginia itself through the mountains, down south, Nashville, Little Rock in on some heavy rain. That could lead to a flooding threat. In fact, those green boxes you saw earlier, those were flood watches through southern Kentucky, where we're going to get a lot of rain while your friends in the northern half of the state potentially get a good amount of snow and ice out of this system. So you can see the storm beginning to unfold, beginning to crank up this tomorrow morning. We'll go through tomorrow afternoon, everything shifting east, southern Virginia in on the ice, even potentially the kind of triad area of North Carolina up through High Point, Danville, Boone, Wilkesboro. Those areas could see some ice out of this event tomorrow afternoon, especially the morning, I think, and then kind of transitioning to rain into the afternoon. But either way, an active winter weather track for you folks. And then that shield of snow up north, Charlottesville, D.C., into the Delmarva, Delaware itself, southern Jersey, potentially Philadelphia, State College, Harrisburg, down through the portions of the western mountains of Maryland here could get a nice amount of snow to this Tuesday afternoon and into the evening, while we're all rain in South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and then the storm even potentially clipping Long Island, southern Connecticut, Rhode Island could maybe get a little bit of snow out of this overnight Tuesday. And obviously the elephant in the room that you're seeing here is while we've got this storm ongoing, our next storm cranking up back out into the plains. Like I said, no rest for the weary here as this track just continues to produce these big winter storms. And then luckily, I think by Wednesday morning, our East Coast storm kind of begins to clear out, gets out of here, and then sets the stage for just an absolute mess it looks like on Wednesday. And that'll be the next topic we talk about. But before we get there, let's go ahead and break down some of these ice and snow totals for our first storm. Now, speaking of ice, most concerned for western Virginia here into northwestern North Carolina, areas just north of Greensboro, High Point. Again, I think the Danville area, back into the mountains of northern North Carolina and back through Blacksburg. This is an area to watch for big ice potential out of this storm. Some of our models hinting at more than 1/4 of an inch of ice. Now, if we look at the blend of models, this kind of blends it all together. I think this is the most realistic solution right now. You can kind of see 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. Now, these areas of Southwest Virginia, someone could get 1/4 of an inch up to 4/10 of an inch of ice. I think that's very feasible here. And that's what we could, kind of watch for. So that would obviously cause big travel concerns. That would cause power outage concerns. That would cause all sorts of problems just from the ice. And that's not even mentioning the snow threat. And if you look at these snowfall totals, folks, pretty impressive. This is the latest high-resolution rapid refresh model. You can see bands here into western Virginia and the mountains of southern West Virginia, 1/2 foot to 10 inches, going for about 3 or 4 inches in D.C. Same thing for Baltimore, 1 to 3 inches in Philadelphia. But this, one of the lower end models. If we take a look at another model, check out the European here, a big swath of around 1/2 foot of snow from Charlottesville into areas right around DC, just south of DC into Delaware. And then you can see that sharp gradient to the north where a little bit less precipitation, about 1 inch or 2 in New York City, about 2 or 3 inches in Philly, and then 3 or 4 down into Baltimore. But either way, you get the picture here, a nice swath of snow on the way right into this area and also back into Kentucky. Let's not forget you folks, back down even into the Cincinnati area, Louisville, into northern Kentucky. We could see a good 3 to 5+ inch event. Again, this model giving some areas closer to 1/2 foot of snow. So that would cause big travel concerns. That would cause some limited power outages probably as well. And not your first rodeo this year. Remember, we had that big storm for really much of this area that's going to get this one back in early January, doing it all again here, kind of right around the 11th or so of February. So pretty good winter for folks in this area. Now, those are the models. I also wanted to show you the NWS forecasts. Just to give you a general idea, a lot closer to that high-resolution rapid refresh model I showed you. They're still going, though, with around 4 to 6 inches being kind of the average here in this portion of northern Virginia. Again, Charlottesville to D.C., back through the Delmarva, the mountains of West Virginia, and then lower-end totals of about 2 to 4, 3 to 5 back into northern Kentucky. So either way, still good totals, a little bit lower than some of the models. We'll see who's right, the experts or the models that they analyze. but will definitely be an interesting storm for sure. And then further north, Philadelphia, again, I think around 3 inches is fair. New York City, 1 to 3 inches looks like a pretty safe bet. And southern Jersey could get a good 3 to 5 inches out of this event. All right, that's storm number 1. That's tomorrow's storm. Let's move it ahead to the Wednesday storm. This one also going to bring big impacts from snow and ice to some flooding rains as well. Here's the setup Tuesday afternoon. Again, this is during tomorrow. We've got all this lift producing that rain, that snow, that ice in the east, but back out west, a big trough dipping into California, kind of little pieces of energy extending along it, and all of this big old mess is eventually going to get brought off to the northeast, crossing the eastern half of the country, getting areas of the Midwest, the Great Lakes, the Northeast, back down into the Central Plains, in on big time winter weather potential before all is said and done. And this pulls away by Valentine's Day come Friday afternoon. So we'll time it out. Here you go. There's all that energy moving up and off to the north and east. Just a tremendous amount of lift, honestly. So if you're getting snow, ice, or rain, either way, going to be some pretty impressive kind of rates out of this, I think. As this continues to track on through. This is Wednesday afternoon, this is overnight Wednesday, and then by Thursday into Friday, crossing through the northeast. And yeah, I guess what you see on the screen, an even stronger piece of energy by the weekend, and that'll be the next topic we kind of discuss. But before we get there, let's break down the midweek storm. So here we go. This is Tuesday evening. What you're seeing, this is again the storm we just talked about into Virginia, Maryland, back up into Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and then you see that snow beginning to break out back into Kansas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, becoming even more prominent here. This is overnight Thursday into the early morning hours of Wednesday. We've got a big shield of snow through Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, ice back down near Oklahoma City. We'll keep on moving it ahead. And yeah, you folks in Chicago, guess what? This could finally be your storm. Check it out. Wednesday later in the morning into the early afternoon, we've got that snow now working into Missouri. Missouri going to kind of be a state divided. Ice in the southern half, maybe even rain all the way down near the Arkansas line. We've got snow in Kansas City. We've got a bit of a wintry mix in St. Louis on this model run. And then that shield of snow getting into Des Moines, into Chicago, northern Illinois, northern Indiana through portions of Wisconsin, Michigan, an icy mix in Indianapolis, back into central Ohio. We've got ice in the Appalachia chain of Virginia, even down into the mountains of North Carolina, running into some icy concerns, all the way up to the Alleghenies. Really just a messy storm in general. Also Wednesday afternoon, maybe a little bit of a severe weather potential down here into Louisiana, Mississippi. We've got the wind shear. If we get enough energy, yeah, we could be dealing with snow. We could see winter storm warnings, tornado warnings, severe thunderstorm warnings, ice storm warnings. We really could be doing it all on Wednesday, folks. Remember, it's Monday evening now, so this is really not far away. And we'll keep on moving it ahead. This storm then working into the northeast. This is Wednesday evening into Thursday. I mean, what a mess. We've got a shield of snow in the Great Lakes. We've got a shield of snow and ice working into the northeast. Kind of the icy conditions down the Appalachia chain. We'll move it ahead. This is into Thursday morning. I think for much of the Northeast, going to be one of those transitional storms. You probably start as snow, then to some ice, then to some rain. You can see in New York City is a great example of that. Starts as snow during Wednesday overnight, changes to maybe some snow, rain mix, and then back to all rain by Thursday morning. I think a lot of folks in the Northeast will have that general transition, but folks into Michigan, Wisconsin, back into Illinois, kind of this circled area right into here, that's where this is going to be an all snow event. And we could get maybe half a foot to a foot of snow, not out of the question, just from this one storm. And also by Thursday morning, we've got a nasty squall line working through the southeast. So I think everyone in the east is going to get something from this one, whether that's snow, ice, rain, obviously going to depend on where you're at. But you can see that storm moving on through. This gets us to Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon, later into Thursday afternoon, and then by the evening, the storm pulling away. And I think luckily for Valentine's Day come Friday, if you have any sort of plans, looks a little bit nicer here come that time frame. So that's the good news. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some potential totals with this one. These are the ice predictions from some of our models. We'll start with the NAM. You can see back into the Central Plains, down through Oklahoma, into the St. Louis area, even the Texas Panhandle, into the Ozarks of Arkansas and Missouri. We've got a bit of an icy mess here. Now, totals could fluctuate, but we could see 1/4 of an inch in places, that enough to cause big time travel disruptions and potentially some power outages. That's the NAM model. GFS, pretty similar look. The European, pretty similar look. You get the idea. Kind of just this zone of ice from potentially as far south as Oklahoma City all the way up to the St. Louis area. Now, snow in the Central Plains, I think it's going to be pretty abundant. The European model here showing half a foot to a foot of snow for Kansas City up through Lincoln, Nebraska, really much of the northern half of Kansas into Iowa, northern Missouri. I'll show you another model here, the GFS. Also pretty snowy. Now, a little less snow to the north. It's got most of the snow into Kansas and Missouri, lesser totals in Iowa and Nebraska. It'll be interesting to see which model gets it right here. I think definitely if we look at some other models, the Canadian closer to the European, the Icon closer to the European, the UK model a little bit closer to the GFS. But generally speaking, most of these models show a lot of snow, and I think that's something you can definitely take away from these maps. Now, let's move it north and east a little bit. Yeah, ice a problem here as well. Southern and central Illinois into Indiana, Ohio. This is the GFS model. I mean, this is a quarter of an inch to a half an inch of ice, folks. That's a problem. That's going to, again, cause those power outage concerns, travel near impossible with totals like that. And it's not just the GFS showing it. The European, same thing. And also kind of the same thing with the snow map here, a little bit further north. So this gets St. Louis in on more ice with the European. It gets Indianapolis with more ice, gets Detroit in on some of that icy mess. Same thing into northwestern Ohio. Again, going to be a problem. Now, snow in this region. I think all snow for much of central and northern Michigan. Chicago finally going to get a good winter storm. You've been wondering where it's at. Well, we found it on the European here, showing nearly 10 inches of snow in the city from Wednesday over through the Thursday time frame would be the timing here. Back into Iowa, again, big snow, southern Wisconsin. I mean, look at these totals up into northern Michigan, a foot of snow plus, kind of not far here from Detroit. And you go maybe 100 miles or so north, so not far in the grand scheme of how big the continental United States is, but on a local scale, sure, pretty far. Either way, though, big storm on the European. GFS, pretty similar, a tad bit further south. Now, I'd buy the European a little bit more. I think this is going to be a little bit closer to this map than this map I'm showing you here, but we'll see. Again, the GFS, it's had some good runs. It's been consistent here. We'll see if it keeps up with that. Either way, though, same thing I said back for areas further to the west. Looks like a big storm. Then we'll bring it to the northeast. Ice here, again, going to be a concern. I think lesser so in the northeast compared to other areas, but you get in the mountains of West Virginia, yeah, I think this is where we need to watch for big icing potential, a quarter of an inch, again, upwards of a half an inch, not out of the question, all the way up to the Alleghenies, and then kind of that just messy setup in the Northeast in general. Going to start as snow, then you get this area of ice, and then you end with rain. Really not a pretty one for many of us here. Now you go up further into the interior. As we take a look at the snow map, you see, yeah, it starts looking a little bit better up through Ontario, Quebec, into the Adirondacks, the Green Mountains. Definitely a better looking storm here on the GFS model. You look at the European, a little bit lower on totals, and that kind of makes sense. Again, with this messy forecast, that kind of transitional storm type, a classic cutter, as we call them. It's probably a term many of you are familiar with in the Northeast. Not so much a coastal storm. However, if you want a coastal storm, stay tuned for the end of the video. I'll throw you a bone here in just a moment. But either way, just a messy storm out of this one for the Northeast. The interior, though, could rack up on some higher totals, kind of as the Canadian here and the GFS show. Now, it's probably overdone a little bit, but either way, it should get at least some snow out of this event. Now let's talk about the weekend and next week. We've got Storm 1 tomorrow. That's a big one for the Mid-Atlantic. Storm 2 by Wednesday and Thursday. That's a big one for the Plains, the Midwest, up through the Great Lakes, and even ice in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Now we go to the weekend, and check this out. An absolute bowling ball of energy working into California this Thursday afternoon. Folks, this is going to bring a lot of rain, a lot of wind, a lot of mountain snow to the west, and then gets to the east. And this is a big area of spin. This easily the most well-defined, prominent trough we've seen out of this stretch of active weather we've been through. Again, you can see it's not hard to find. If I say find the trough, or just the exciting thing on the map, you could probably ask a kindergartner and they would definitely point to this big area of bright colors, and that's exactly what it is. That's the troublemaker this Saturday afternoon, pictured below. And just the meteorology here, like we kind of like to do on the channel, this is the center of the trough. Everything on the right-hand side here, that's where all the active weather's getting kicked up. That's where we have that diffluence above us. We've got that ascent, that rising motion, that leading to cyclogenesis. And I'd be willing to bet even probably a bit of a jet streak coupled in here, so that means means kind of these circled areas could get even more enhanced lift, depending on the exact orientation and the location of whatever jet streak may form from this. It's going to be a very active weekend ahead with all of this energy working through the lower 48. And check it out, goes to the east and then gets scooped up by northern stream energy. This could even deepen that low pressure, deepen that low pressure at the surface further by Saturday, Sunday, Monday. This would be about Sunday night here. That could maybe lead to blizzard conditions somewhere. Now, I'm not saying we're going to see a blizzard, but you got all the energy here. If you can get the low pressure to line up right with it and maybe get a bit of a deformation band on the back end of whatever low pressure forms, we could at least get blizzard-like conditions for someone out of that storm. And if that storm wasn't exciting enough for you, here we go. By next week, this closer to 10 days away, another big piece of energy, this time further south. My folks in the Carolinas have been asking about snow. Tennessee's been asking about snow. Areas of southern Kentucky that are going to miss out with the storm tomorrow asking about snow. Watching around the 20th, right in that time frame, models have been hinting at some big piece of energy in the east that could lead to active weather. And that's a good look on the European. Trust me, that could definitely bring some sort of winter storm. Now, what could this look like on the ground? We're not going to go super in depth. Again, we've got to get through the first two storms, but here we go. Thursday afternoon, here's our Valentine's storm. We're working on out of here. And I mean, heck, that itself could be bringing blizzard conditions to Canada. Here we go, though. Big system working out west into California, into the Rockies. Active weather there ejects into the plains. And check this out, folks. This is Saturday afternoon. I mean, this just screams powerful storm system. It only says 1,001, but watch what happens. We've got that very warm convection and kind of moisture, warm air advection is what I meant to say, kind of spewing out ahead of this. We've got that cool and kind of dry conveyor feeding into the storm here. I mean, this thing is going to want to spin pretty quickly and deepen that pressure. And watch as that happens. Saturday afternoon and evening, 998. Gets down to 995, 993, 991. We get down to 984. Yeah, this thing is strengthening quickly. And folks, that is a strong squall line down south. Watching for severe weather with this one. Watching for snow and strong winds on the northern side. Right now, it looks like more of a rainstorm for the I-95, but we could get big snow somewhere else. We've got the severe weather I mentioned to worry about. And then that's just storm number one in the long range. Here comes the other storm. And yeah, check it out. A lot further south, a lot snowier for some folks that have kind of missed out on this pattern so far. And then tries to ride up the coast as a big storm by about 10 or so days from now. So it looks to stay very active is kind of the point to take home from that. Just to quickly show you the GFS, that was the European. I'll just kind of breeze through this because it's basically the same thing. Here comes a storm this weekend into the west, ejects into the plains. We've got basically the same thing. Big storm strengthening up the coast by this weekend. Then next week, another storm dives south. Looks to be further, again, south with the snow and the ice and the rain, and even tries to get some winter weather into the Carolinas by about 10 days from now. We'll see what happens. Now, something I do want to bring your attention to, this brand new Day 6 outlook for severe weather from the Storm Prediction Center for Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. Excuse me. I'm struggling here at the end. But has that severe weather potential in this area for Day 6. So that would be this coming Saturday. Like I said, we've got the big storm on the map here. It definitely looks to produce severe weather. I think down to the deep south, classic Dixie Alley event here could even lead to a big tornado threat. We won't know until we get closer, but keep that in your mind if you're down here in this shaded area. And then for my snow fans, let's take a look at the chances for some winter weather out of this pattern. So here comes the Saturday, Sunday storm. Highest chance for snow there through the Midwest into potentially portions of the Northeast. This model, the European ensemble, is pretty excited for the interior Northeast of some big snow potential with that one. And then the next week's system, notice how it's much further south. Has a lot higher chance for snow in Arkansas, Tennessee, even portions of the Carolinas, Virginia, and then tries to ride up the coast. We've been talking about that 20th time frame of February. Yeah, it looks to be pretty active here on the ensembles as well. Alrighty, folks, that's all I got for you on this. What day of the week is it? It is Monday. Again, it has been crazy. I'm already losing track of what day of the week it is. But stay tuned. Come back again. Go ahead if you haven't already. Hit the like button on the video. Subscribe. Hit the bell for the latest notifications. Going to want to stay up to date with this very active pattern as we continue to end out the month of February. Alrighty, folks. Y'all have a great one. Stay warm. Stay safe. And I'll see you all next time.